Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. So I'm going to continue reading They Shook Hands. I'm up to chapter 12 right now. They Shook Hands, Year 1, Chapter 12, Presents at Christmas. The month of November slid by with little notice. Classes continued as they were wont to do. The weather turned colder, and snow began to fall nearly every day. Clouds regularly filled the sky, ruining their Thursday night sky watching. Professor Sinatra complained bitterly about the state of the night skies, but she could do nothing about the clouds. She had rescheduled their nighttime gazing, but in the end she threw her hands up and said she just didn't care anymore. Astronomy got interesting again. Now they were no longer doing the memorization of star constellations. Now they talked about the planets, still learning the names of the moon and studying their orbits, as well as delving into the mythos. I mean, no further progress in discovering the identity of Nicholas Flamel. Millie's idea of sneaking information out of Hagrid's head hadn't yielded results yet. She and Harry had taken to having tea with the big man every Friday afternoon, but he always guarded his speech carefully. Hagrid knew what they were trying to do, but apparently couldn't bring himself to tell Harry not to come back. Draco put his foot down and made it clear that under no circumstances would he be roaming around the school at all hours looking for clues. He had quite enough adventures, so he described them as near-death experiences, thank you very much. So the question was just what was hidden in the third floor corridor became less and less importance. The Slytherins had become more and more occupied with potions, charms, and defense against the dark arts. Harry's time was further taken up by Quidditch practice. He often returned to the dungeons and were closer to something a popsicle than a boy, and the others regularly came to watch the team practice. Perhaps most important to the Slytherins was keeping their word. Millie's word to the Sorting Hat. Every night they loitered in the entryway to the Great Hall, cajoling their fellow students to sign their petition. By last week in November, they collected what Billy deemed to be enough signatures, and turned the whole thing into Professor Snape after potions class. He'd raised an eyebrow. They knew about their petition and saw the staff as his mark and his confidence in them that he merely nodded and told them that it would be in the headmaster's hands by dinner. That even after the plates had been emptied, Professor Dumbledore rose to his feet and cleared his throat. I received petition initiative of the first-year students of Slytherin House for the formation of a school choir. Now, as you know, music has magic to itself, so I'm very pleased to announce that on the Monday evenings after dinner, the new Hogwarts school choir will meet right here in the Great Hall. The old man's eyes were twinkling. He seemed to be in jolly spirits. He sat down and raised his goblet to his lips. Slytherin Vale burst into applause, the first years especially. Professor Snape, sitting at the high table, also clapped his hands, a faint smile on his face. The rest of the hall joined in the applause, and some people with more enthusiasm than others. The tables filled with pastry, and the students began to speculate on who would be directing the choir. The first Slytherins smirked knowingly at each other. They all knew that the director would be someone the other students would never suspect. That part of the mission had been secured by a confidence charm courtesy of Elon Malfoy. That evening, back in the common room, the first year's congratulations wasn't a job well done. Millie was the star of the hour, for it had been she who had started things off. Speech, Theo called. Hear, hear, speech, Daphne echoed. Millie grinned and got to her feet. My fellow Slytherins, she began, spreading her arms broadly, as if to hug the whole room. Everyone in the common room applauded. Millie's voice carried very well. Erica Chaubrey, a second year, let out a piercing whistle that bounced off the stone walls. I would like to thank all of you for signing our petition. Millie continued, means so much to me, and to all of us to know their house fully supports us. Cheers and cackles rose up from our audience. Cheers were from those who voluntarily signed the petition. The cackles came from those who had been threatened by Elon Malfoy with the sound hexing. We hope that you will all follow through on your interest in the choir. We'll see you all at the first meeting. Millie bowed from the waist, with the applause of her house rising around her. The show over, the students all settled back into their routine. Every so often, the first years you hear someone speculating over the identity of the choir director, and they smirked at each other some more. As the night wore on, the first years tried to get their homework finished and out of the way so they could enjoy the weekend worry-free. Theo finished his first and went to bed early, claiming a headache. Draco kept yawning every 3 seconds and finally closed his strong book and headed for the dorm. Cole made it to 11 o'clock before he gave up studying. Harry was at the table until quite late, reading his Transfiguration text. He still struggled in that class and was determined to improve his mark. He didn't remember his other friends leaving the table, just as he didn't remember falling asleep. He only realized he was shaken awake by Jessica Conejo, a sixth-year prefect responsible for the first years. Harry, she said softly, Harry, wake up now, it's time to go to bed. Harry mumbled something and came half awake. He yawned, peering around the shadowy darkness. The fire in the fireplace had near to burned out, and the lamps which normally gave off their warm green glow had been extinguished. Jessica was waking, Pansy and Daphne as well. There was no one else in the common room. Harry yawned again and rubbed his eyes, even sleeping on his books, and could feel the imprint in his face. He slowly picked them up and began thrusting them into his bag. Pansy and Daphne waved goodnight and went down to the corridor and towards the room. Harry was still putting his things away and moving very slowly. Harry, are you all right? Jessica asked him. He looked into her dark eyes, her pretty face framed by her black ringlets of hair. She had caught it, he noticed it absently, Now it bobbed around her shoulders. Just very sleepy, he mumbled. She must have understood him because she picked up his bag for him. She took his hand and led him down the corridor to his dormitory. Will snores could be heard even through the thick oak door. Here you are. I'll see you in the morning. Good night, Harry, Jessica whispered as she planted a kiss on his forehead. He stumbled to the room and dropped his bag by his trunk. He didn't get his glasses off before he pitched face down to his bed and began sawing wood. The weekend passed in a lazy manner. For some physical reason, they could hardly get any homework, so the students were able to relax and enjoy each other's company. Harry was getting rather good at quickly shuffling a pack of cards. He also learned how to play gobstones, a game played with colored stones that spat foul-smelling liquid at you if you lost. The first years went to bed late and got out of bed late all weekend. The slight break was very welcome, so they all took advantage of the chance to rest. So when Monday came around, they were all bright-eyed and perky in horology. Even those who didn't enjoy the class as much as the others were able to find interest in the lesson about poinsettia, a seasonal plant that adopted the Muggle world as a Christmas flower of all things. Amberson puts those things all over the house at Christmas time, he whispered to Draco as he scribbled on notes. Idiot Muggles, his friend said with a sneer. The plant has loads of magical uses, and they use it as a bloody decoration. After the herbology lesson, they were off to nap time, and the history of magic and Professor Binns droned on and on as usual. As usual, the only person paying attention was Hermione Granger. Even though the rest of her never asked questions, her random occasionally go into the air, and she would practically bounce in her seat, eager for attention. Tracy amused herself by mocking the other girl, constantly whispering in Harry's ear. Harry, finding Granger's attitude to be entirely funny, was hard-pressed to not laugh out loud and shame the house. Draco and Theo were whispering to each other on Harry's other side. After lecture, Granger stayed behind to ask Professor Binns a question. A couple of girls from Hufflepuff tried to catch her attention, but she waved them on, presumably to lunch. When Granger had finished her business, she ordered her bag and left the classroom. The Pleo pointed his wand just as he was stepping through the door and cast a tripping jinx. Granger stumbled and fell to the floor. Harry was a bit shocked. Making fun of someone was one thing, but attacking a fellow student was quite another. Ow, what's the big idea? She demanded. She rolled off her stomach and sat up, staring at the Slytherins with a big mixture of anger and fear. Oops, Theo said with vast insincerity. I was just showing off my mates here a new jinx I picked up. What are you doing getting in my way, mudblood? Harry started to step forward to say something, but Draco silenced him with a warning look. Leave me alone, she protested, getting to her feet. You think an awful lot about yourself, don't you, Granger? Draco said in a drawling tone of voice. You act awfully superior for a mudblood. I don't know what you mean, she said, biting her lower lip, showing her large front teeth. Why can't you just leave me alone? I don't even know you. We don't want to know you, Pansy said scornfully, so why not get out of here? Granger began backing away. You should all just leave me alone, she said again. I'm glad this is the only class to share with you, because I don't like any of you. Don't hear you whispering about me. I don't care about not being a pureblood. I'm happy in Hufflepuff. Before anyone could respond, she turned and ran away down the hall. Pansy laughed at her until she was out of sight. That was fun, she declared. I needed that. Bristled Snout with her hand in the air like some know-it-all teacher's pet. Probably the only reason she hasn't brought Binns and Appley is because he couldn't eat it, Tracy said, curling her lip. Speaking of food, it's time for lunch, Crabbe interjected. Thinking about food again, fathead? Draco jeered them. My head's not fat. Harry was quite on the way to lunch. The scene from after history class was rankling with him a bit. On the one hand, by her own admission, Granger was happy in Hufflepuff. On the other hand, she was being terrorized by Draco and the others. He wrestled with it a while, but finally shrugged it off. Surely no lasting harm would come of it. After all, Dudley had bullied him for 10 whole years, and Harry was none the worse for wear. It toughened him up. Everything will work out, he assured himself as he bit into his sandwich. Things always do. That evening, as the proto choir remained in the Great Hall after dinner, there were about 70 students present, a turnout considerably larger than they expected. All the first Slytherins were very pleased with themselves. Professor Dumbledore came in through a side door with the sorting hat and stool in his hands. There was a murmuring sound as everyone wondered what was going on. Greetings, fellow musicians, the professor said warmly. Delighted that so many of you decided to attend. Hope you all enjoy your practice. He set the stool down, placed the sorting hat on the top of it, and left. There was dead silence. No one knew what to make of this twist. Then the tear in the hat opened and began to speak. Good evening to you all. Thank you so much for coming out to our first organizational meeting. I doubt we have enough time to practice any traditional holiday songs, so we're going to move right into the springtime music. Now they like all the young ladies who sing soprano here to my left, and those who sing alto to stand next to them. Young men who sing bass here to the right, and tenors next to them. Boys, please stand with the girls until your voices change. You'll be singing those parts. Stunned, nobody moved. Come on now, come on. Don't just stand there. Get organized. This is insane, as Rufflepuff stepped away from the others. This is a farce. Set up for a serious choir. I'm not going to embarrass myself like this. He walked out of the Great Hall. Several other students followed him. Any of those things is all complete lunacy? He asked snappingly. No one answered. Right then, does anyone have any requests for songs left to sing? Blow away the morning dew, Tracy spoke up immediately. An old favorite, said the hat. Someone else? Sir Arthur and Charming Molly, Theo contributed. A beautiful tune, the hat declared. England's Mountains Green, Millie spoke up rather loudly. Now the proper title, but still excellent, the hat exclaimed. Right, we'll also be doing this is my father's world, because I happen to like that song. I'll have sheet music for you all next week. For tonight, we're going to work on pitch and scales. First, warm-ups. The hat hummed a note, then ran 4 notes evenly and loudly before running back down to the starting note. Now with me, sing the notes with the ah sound. Obediently they odd up and back. Very good, the hat told them. You there, Goyle, move over to the tenor section, please. Crab, you go with him. Again, everyone this time starting 1 note higher. Thad hummed up and ran 4 notes before sliding back down. They followed again, making the ah sound. They moved up 1 starting note, then another, and another, and another. Some of the older boys are having trouble reaching that octave. Tad kept going. Now none of the older boys were singing. Their voices just didn't reach that range. Most of the girls and younger boys were still hitting the notes. The hat kept rising higher and higher, looking for the upper limit to the girls' voices. The last 3 still singing, the 5th-year Gryffindor named Tiffany Trotter, a 5th-year Ravenclaw named Penelope Clearwater, and a 6th-year Slytherin named Elizabeth Archer were singing notes far above the soprano range. Ladies, that was excellent. Now you'll be a leading soloist. Fawcett, you were soprano. Give it the altos. Lynn Fawcett, a 5th-year Slytherin, move into the alto grouping. That was very good. Now we go down, the hat declared. They started on that first note again, sliding up, then down the scale. They dropped a note, then continued. The girls and younger boys began to fall silent. The octave was too low for them. Again and again, they went through the exercise, dropping the starting note each time. Tad kept dropping lower and lower, trying to find the boys' limit. A number of boys are still singing, especially Peter Bond Erickson, who was the most audible with his powerful voice. Suburb, the hat crowed. Thought it was going to be weeks whipping you all in some sort of decent group, but most of you seem to know what part of you sing already. Delightful. The hat quivered in choir and glee. I think we're all going to have a lot of fun for the rest of the year. I look forward to our next meeting. I'll see you all next week. The choir dispersed, but the first Slytherins remained behind. The hat remained animated. I must say, Bulstrode, this is extremely decent amount of fun. When we first proposed the idea, I wasn't sure at all sure it would happen. Oh, he said to Mrs. Lee, I knew you would do your part. Slytherins always keep their word. What I didn't expect was the turnout we had tonight, the level of skills those students have. I had an inkling from what I've seen in their heads, but even I was stunned. You're quite welcome. You did your part, we did ours. Our bargains concluded, Millie said. Quite right. I sensed the headmaster approaching, so I'll take my leave of you. You best get back to the dormitory. Good night. That went still. Good evening, Professor Dumbledore called out as he entered the great hall, his merry eyes twinkling, and he was smiling. Did you enjoy your choir meeting, children? Yes, sir, they said more or less together. Good. Competition was so successful. It's not often see such initiative among the students. Hope you all stick to it. Music is such a wonderful thing. I'm proud of you organizing yourselves like this. Thank you, Sir Milius, for taking the swear that was her due. Even the headmaster didn't know it. It's getting late, he noted. It's nearly past my bedtime. I shall see you all at breakfast. Good night, sir, they chorused. Christmas was coming. No one could wait for the holidays to start. Harry and everyone else was looking forward to taking a break from school. One morning in mid-December, the young Slytherins made their way to the astronomy tower to find the battlements covered with several feet of snow that had fallen in the night. Goyle employed his fire spells to melt a cleared path. The lake had frozen solid, and the snow-covered hill beckoned all the students all who were waiting for the weekend. The boarding house and both Slytherin common room and individual dormitories made the house a cozy haven of light and warmth. Elsewhere, only the great hall was remotely comfortable. In the rest of the draughty castle, the corridors were ice cold, and the bitter wind constantly rattled the classroom windows. Though the dungeons were made of stone and held the water chill, the walls were solid, and neither snow nor wind could penetrate. On the first day of December, Harry and his friends turned to the common room after dinner to find Professor Snape already there waiting for them. Harry figured Snape must know a good few secret packages, because the other head had still been in the great hall as they left. Good evening, first years. Good evening, Professor. You all fetch your wands and meet motions classroom immediately. Wondering what was going on? Those who were already carrying their wands went into the dormitories to retrieve them. It would wise never be without your wands, Snape called after them. When Crabbe, Goyle, and Devin had returned, first Slytherins all head to the potions lab. I have asked you here tonight so I may pass on one of the secrets of the Slytherin house. The weather has been getting colder as you will have noticed. The castle can be quite draughty, and the dungeons in particular are very chilly. We are Slytherin, our symbol is the snake. Cold does not affect the snake, and neither shall it affect any of you. The self-warming charm is essential for you to know. With it, you'll be able to handle the variations of temperature at Hogwarts. The incantation is Concalatio Ipse. Concalaeso ipse. And the wand motion is a simple tap to the head and the heart. Harry got the hang of the spell in a few minutes. Draco, Tracy, and Theo had similarly quick success. Millie definitely took a bit longer, as did Crabbe and Goyle. Pansy, the worst student in Charms, took nearly an hour. Professor Snape had never once lost his patience with her. When she could cast a spell with ease, did he take his leave of them. Professor, Harry said, Yes, Mr. Potter? Is it possible they may stay at school over the holiday? Yes. Sometimes circumstances don't allow a student to go home. I was circulating a sign to you within the next few days. Harry let out a clenched breath. Thank you, sir. I certainly didn't want to go back to my awful muggle relatives. Snape seemed curious, but didn't inquire, but Harry didn't volunteer. In the back of his mind, the suspicion that Snape might be a bad guy kept him from divulging lots of details. Bad guy or not, though, Harry was very, very grateful to Snape for showing the self-warming charm. It was practical, effective, and very clever. In the potions laboratory the next day, the Slytherins watched with white smirks as the shivering Gryffindors huddled close to their hot cauldrons. Dear Harry, We hope your school year is going well. Draco speaks quite highly of you. We'd like to invite you to join us for the Christmas holiday in Malfoy Manor. Best wishes, Lucius and Narcissus Malfoy. Brilliant, Harry said, showing the letter to Draco. Now I don't have to stay at school. They didn't tell me if they were going to invite you. Not a problem, is it? Not at all. I just didn't know. Good, you can help me prank Elon. Professor Snape came to the common room that very night, called the house to order. If anyone's interested in remaining at school over the Christmas holiday, please come and sign this parchment. We will need to know how much food to prepare for the feast. Excuse me, Harry said to his friends. Went over where Snape was sitting. Mr. Potter, here's a sign up. Thank you, sir. But it looks like here's a sign up. Thank you, sir. But it looks like I won't need to stay after all. Yeah, this is part 1 of They Shook Hands, Year 1, Chapter 12. Take care, everybody.